when you're frustrated in the relationship, when you're fighting, you're arguing, you're not seeing eye to eye.
Yeah. Oh, great.
You think they're the problem.
Oh.
They're not understanding you. What should we ask ourselves?
Well, first of all, what am I actually frustrated about?
Yeah.
Right. Let's start there. What am I frustrated about? What are the problems that I am having? Because so often we don't even communicate with we're not even clear, right? What the problems are. What are the areas of frustration? What are the problems? And then, before you go and try to solve it, you then have to ask, what is my contribution? Mm-hmm. Because everyone is making a contribution to the very problems that they can't stand in their relationship.
What is my contribution to this problem?
Correct.
Yeah.
What is my contribution to the problem? Because because it's so easy. It's easy to point the finger.
Yeah.
But it's really hard to point the finger back at ourselves. It's really hard. Mm-hmm. And so before you start doing this and you're not doing right and you're wrong and you're pointing the finger at whoever you're in the relationship with, you start to do this assessment and say, okay, what's really the problem? What have I not been communicative enough? Have I not set my expectations? Have I been too harsh? You gotta really start doing the assessment of yourself and then bring that conversation.
And I think also to go even deeper is why is this triggering me?
Exactly.
Why is this a problem for me?
Yes. Yes.
Maybe it's not the other person's doing something to me, but the trigger of it is something I haven't healed or addressed from the past.
Yes.
And that's why I'm triggered.
Yes.
But they're just being them. And, depending on the situation, but it's what's the root of this frustration for me?
Dude, this is so true. And this is why I talk about this in the book. Mm-hmm. I talk about how expectations are the secret software that run our life.
Yeah.
And what I mean by that is that we don't actually sometimes react to life events. We react to our expectations of events.
Right.
So if situations or people exceed our expectation, we're happy. If situations or people don't, we're devastated.
So what should we do? Have no expectations?
No, you can't do that. Because expectations are like blood pressure. Too high, it's not good. Too low, it's not good. Right. Because expectation, we need motivation. Expectations are hope, right? So we do have to have hope, but we've got to set it properly.
Right.
Because so often when our expectation is not set, to your point that you made, we end up reacting based upon an unset expectation. Right. And so it's not that what the person's doing is wrong. It's that we have not set expectations for ourselves. We haven't identified what those triggers are. We haven't identified, oh, wait a second. They're not the problem. It's how I'm looking at it is the problem. Mm-hmm. So in order to set expectations, I have every person that reads the book ask these two questions. One, is it realistic or unrealistic? How do you know? It comes down to one word. This is how you determine if your expectation is realistic or unrealistic. Control.
What do you mean? Are you trying to be in control or?
If it's within your control to do it, you can expect it. It's a realistic expectation. If it's out of your control, you cannot expect it. So I'll give two examples. Your podcast is amazing. It's incredible. One of the most dynamic podcasts in the world.
Thank you.
No matter how hard you try, you cannot force somebody to go listen to it.
No,
Can't.
I can hope.
Hope.
I can have a range of what I think people listen to.
Yes, I can have a target. I can have a goal. But if you put an expectation of hey, it's got to be 1 million by next month.
Right.
I would argue that's unrealistic because it's out of your control.
Right.
What's in your control? I want to produce the best podcasts with the best conversations and the best guests with the best marketing and the best publicity. All in your control, realistic to expect. Now, let's apply that to people. You're in a relationship. I want this person to love me in a certain way. I want this person to, have this amount of sex. I want this person to go work out. I want this person to go eat. I want this person.
Can't control that.
You can't control it.
You can communicate it. You can set up the structure for it.
But you can't control it.
Yeah.
And so often, our expectations with others are unset. Why? Because we're trying to control what we don't. You and I only control ourselves and the remote, wherever the remote, that's it.
Yeah.
I can't control anybody else, ever. And too often, we spend so much energy trying to get someone to behave and live in the way that we want,
Yeah.
instead of behaving in the way that we want, right? Living the way that we want. And if we live the way that we want, then whoever we're in the relationship with, either that is going to compel them to say, hey, you know what? I like what you're doing. And then you say, hey, I like what you're doing. So let's do that together.
Right.
Or it won't. But when we try to get somebody to be what we want them to be and do what we want them to do, that's called manipulation.
What happens when we are in a relation, when we are trying to control or manipulate someone else in an intimate relationship, or they're doing that to us? What happens?
What happens is love goes down. Fear rises. Here's what I mean by that. The fear of, if I don't do this, they're going to leave. So that person, everyone has different degrees of self-determination. And so in a relationship, when you've fallen in love and you really care about somebody and they're asking you to do something or be something, that could be a very compelling thing to do, even when it's not who you are. And so the fear of, if I don't, will they leave? Okay, so then it becomes a performance-based relationship.
It's not good.
It's not good. I'm doing this because I don't want them to go, but I know it doesn't bring me joy. So it no longer is love leading the way.
It's fear.
It's fear. It's fear. And okay, you know what? I'm gonna do this because this is what they want, and I'm gonna become this. But every moment that I do it, and it's not in my heart, is a moment that my soul gets crushed.
Oh.
Every single moment.
This is my life. This is my life up until now, where, not all the time, but I could see a pattern in my past relationships where I would just do things to make the other person happy, even though I didn't want to do them, because they were angry or upset or frustrated or whatever. They had some expectation. And I would sense like, man, the love is going down a little bit. But when I took responsibility and accountability, I was like, but it's not their fault. I'm the one choosing to do these things because I'm afraid that they're going to be angry at me, or that they're going to leave, or they're not going to love me. So it's my responsibility to stand in my truth in those tough, challenging moments when someone's like, you don't support me, you're not doing whatever they're saying.
Yeah.
It's tough to do that.
Oh.
We're triggered, it's challenging. But I think if someone's going to leave you by you standing in your truth and being frustrated by you constantly, then that's maybe not the right fit for you.
Well, not only is it potentially not the right fit, you got to think about something. You got to put yourself at the end of your life. And you got to say.
You posted a quote on Instagram recently about this.
Yes.
I saw it.
That's a good quote.
One of the regrets, one of the regrets of the dying.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, that quote. Yeah. And I use that as a prompt.
Yes.
To get people to think about in your life. But if you do that, so let's say in that dynamic, you become what they want you to be, even though it's not who you really are. You get to the end of your life, and can you live with doing what was expected but never what was destined? Can you live with doing what was expected but never what was destined? And if the answer to that question is no, then you gotta make some changes now.
So tough.
It is.
Why does love trap us?
Because
maybe, I'm speaking for myself.
Yeah.
Because I don't want to say the world does this, but I sense that a lot of other people do this. When we feel the sense of chemistry and connection and intimacy and vulnerability and love, whether it's real or not, we sense that feeling of intimacy with someone else. Why does that trap us? And we stay in these things, in general, I'm not speaking for everyone, but we tend to stay in these things much longer than we should. Like, you'll hear people say, I knew I should have got a divorce 7 years ago.
Yeah.
It's like they break up with a divorce. I always ask them, when did you know that you weren't supposed to be with this person? 5 years ago, 10 years ago, the day I got married. Right? You hear these things and you're like, well, why do we stay?
Right.
Why is this so hard for us, this trap of love?
Right.
Why don't we get out of it sooner?
Right. I mean, there's so many reasons. The reason that comes to mind is worth, self-worth.
we don't believe we're worth, or we're afraid we won't find something as good, or what do you mean?
All of it. What I mean is that it can take a while for you to come into a revelation of what you're worth and that you are worthy to be happy and pursue happiness on your terms and come to the revelation that, this dynamic is no longer, making that contribution to my life. And
not that they're bad and wrong.
There you go. Right.
Not that it's all their fault.
There you go.
It just wasn't the right fit.
And for me, when you're in that situation, it can take a long time for you to get to the place where you feel enough worth, where you're ready to say, you know what, I'm going to endure the fear, I'm going to endure the challenges to make that kind of move. So when you talk about love, love cuts to the core of our worth because we all need it.
Man.
And when I say love, we all need love, I don't mean just romantic love. I'm just saying we all need to love and be loved. I think it's just part of our humanity. It's just part of how we were created. It's part of our divinity, right? God is love. God is in us. We love, right? And we serve. And so part of that love is, oh man, so much of it is focused on giving. Because think about how we're socialized, right? Oh, you do the right thing. Oh, mommy, daddy loves you. Oh, I want to, but it's not like, do you love you? Do you know you're worthy? Do you know that you are worth it? Do you love who looks back at you in the mirror? Do you love who looks back at you when you take the selfie? Because at the end of the day, love becomes complicated because we never actually get there with our worth and who we really are. And so we go into the relationship and we haven't really done the work. We kind of feel worthy. We don't quite feel loved, and we bring all of that. That's a recipe for this, And here's the thing, it's okay, right? Love is like a rocky sea, right? You know what I mean? We're on the boat, man, it's gonna be rocky. That's okay. Because we all have our stuff. So it's not about finding somebody who don't have stuff. You want to find somebody who can help you with your stuff. Who's willing to help you with your stuff. So that as you bring things that are difficult, they're like, hey, it's cool, let's work this through. But you both find a healthy way to do it. But one of the reasons why I think people stay in things is because of worth. And you need time to get to a place, and some people never get there, where you realize what you're worth. Because at the end of the day, I go back to happiness. It's like, and peace and joy. We only live this life once. I'm a Christian. I believe in heaven. I believe in that. But I also believe that this earth, this life, this particular existence, we only get it once. So when you really put that in the broad scheme of things, you think, okay, am I living right now according to my choice?
Yes.
Am I doing the things that bring me joy, bring me peace? Or am I allowing things in my life that are working against it, no matter what they are? It could be a relationship, it could be a job, it could be a living environment, whatever it is. I have to take control and do this assessment and then make the decision, okay, from a relationship standpoint, if my relationship isn't everything I wanted, okay, what do I need to do to fix it? But first I gotta fix me. And I gotta work on me. And I gotta love me. And as I love me, it will then help me learn how to love others and make the assessment. Okay, you know what? Maybe this person is gonna be able to walk with me and I walk with them. Great. Maybe not. But let me not just point the finger and do the work. The other thing I want to hit is when you talk about setting expectations, that second part of setting expectations is communication, right? Is it spoken or unspoken? And we talked about this earlier. You've got to actually ask the question. So even in this situation, when you talk about a difficult relationship, this scenario, instead of making the assumption, whatever your area of frustration is, sit down and frame it as a question. You know what? I was expecting that, in this relationship that, we would sit down and eat every night at 7:00.
Right, because this is what we did with my family.
Right.
So I just assumed.
So I just assumed.
You would do the same thing.
Is that your expectation? Is that something I can expect from you? And let them say yes or no. Oh, okay, so for you, you don't ever expect to be home at 7.
You're going out to dinner.
You're going out to dinner, right? Oh, okay, got it. Okay. All right, okay, great. Wow, now we're actually having a real adult conversation, right? We're having an adult conversation because we're taking accountability and we're communicating. And so when it comes to setting expectations in any area of life, you gotta know, is it realistic or unrealistic vis-a-vis control? And you gotta ask, is it spoken or unspoken vis-a-vis communication? And when we start to do these tools, it does free us up. Because the reason why I wanted to write Live Free is because so often we're not. And when I say live free, what I mean is that when you and I live free, when anyone lives free, it means they are not under the mental, physical, or emotional control of anyone or anything. That's what living free is. Living free means, and so when we get into a situation and we start to feel like, ooh, this person is starting to feel like this person is making me mad or contributing to my discontent, then I would say to that person, okay, pause for a minute, pause for a second. It's super easy just to turn all your attention to what they're not doing, right? No. How do you want to feel in the situation? What will give you more power in the situation? What will give you more peace? Okay, you know what? I'm identifying that there are some things in my relationship that are incompatible.
Yes.
I am going to spend some time observing what those things are and identifying if there are certain things I can live with and what I can't.
Right. And communicating about
and
them.
Communicating those areas that I can't to see if it's possible we can set our expectations together.
The biggest challenge you'll find is when you communicate those things out of expectation or anger or frustration, the other person's probably not going to be able to receive it. If you're already making someone wrong for what they're doing or not doing, it's very challenging to have an adult conversation.
Bro,
and this is something,
I've been there before.
I've done that, and I've received it.
Yes.
And it's challenging to do, but when you come from a place of 100% responsibility, accountability, and figuring, why is this triggering me? Why is this really affecting me?
Dude.
Then you can come from a calmer place of like, okay, I didn't like this, but I don't need to make you wrong for this in this moment, because we can talk about it, come up with an agreement that then moving forward, we can either live up to or not. And then we can make a decision if this frustrates me.
Correct. I mean,
challenging.
It's challenging, but it's good work. And for me, you talk about flaws, like that's an area that I have been, outside of identifying what my needs are and being okay to admit those needs. One of the flaws, man, is that, I have a really strong sense of right and wrong.
And if someone's not doing that, you're like,
according to me,
that's wrong.
Right. So if some may have right, dude, I'm like, that's wrong. So when Megan and I have had moments of disagreement, I have at times mishandled it completely. Because I have in my mind made the decision that on that particular thing that she may have done that I didn't like, she's wrong.
Yeah. For you.
For me.
Right.
But no. For me came as I evolved and as I grew. Initially, it was like, no, that's wrong.
Yeah.
Period. Wrong in the world. Not just wrong for DeVon, wrong in the world. So here's the problem with that. The problem is when I make the decision and judge her action as wrong, the moment I bring it up in a way of attack. Yeah. And anyone, when they feel attacked, they're gonna get defensive.
You can't do that in a relationship.
You can't do it, but it happens all the time.
It does, man.
And dude, what would happen is I would, get on my self-righteous, soapbox.
I can't believe we did this.
There you go. There you go.
What were you thinking?
There you go. Judgment.
What's she gonna say? Oh, you're right, DeVon. I'm a bad person. Everything you say is truth.
Right. Yeah. No, dude, listen. I learned the hard way. What that did was it pushed her further away.
Right.
It doesn't mean that the point of what I was bringing up, whatever we were dealing with, didn't have merit. Didn't mean that. It just meant that the way I went about it was wrong.
Right.
And my intent was not being realized because I came at it from judgment and I'm right and you're wrong and da-da-da-da. So as I bumped my head, I realized, oh, got it. The way I see the world is the way I see the world.
Yeah.
It's not exactly how the world may be. So when I use how I see the world as the way that she has to see the world, I am the one with the problem.
Yeah.
Because I've got to understand and take into account the two different perspectives.
Right.
So what I had to learn to do is express it from here. My love.
Yeah.
When this happened, here's how it made me feel. Here's was my takeaway. Is that the right way to think about it? So instead of doing like this, I had to do like this. Oh yeah, when you said that, I felt this way about that. How can we, and that approach, bro, is what then brings the communication.
Right. Then she wants to be contributing in a more supportive way.
And also just talk it through, right? Because it's not a pointing the finger. I'm not pointing the finger at her. She's not pointing the finger at me. We're actually talking about it. So she'll say, hey, there's certain things that you do that make me feel this way. I was like, oh, okay. Now, here's another hard truth. There's some situations I'm like, I'm not responsible for those feelings.
Right. Doesn't mean you have to change who you are.
No, baby, I love you. I understand what you're saying. And I love you, period. I understand you feel a certain way about certain things. That's not my responsibility. Mm-hmm. Right? So the same way that I feel about certain things, you're like, hey, that's not my responsibility, right?
Yeah.
I still got to go do my work. I still have to go on my journey. And I still have to continue to get to that place of peace and healing and contentment inside the journey, if that makes sense.
On a scale of 1 to 10 of jealousy, 10 being extremely jealous human being, 1 being not jealous at all, where would you say you lie?
In life or like relationship?
In relationship.
Oh man, I'm not jealous. I'm like, it's like a 1 for me.
Did you ever used to be jealous in relationships?
Never. And I'll tell you why. Because I love me, okay?
Great.
So I'm like, yo, listen, I ain't jealous of no other dude. I'm not. And the reality is, if any woman that I was with found, for whatever, more comfort or was like, hey, I want to go over there and experience that person, God bless you. Mm-hmm. God bless you.
We're not the right fit then.
Not the right fit.
Yeah.
And if I was a jealous person, I couldn't be married to my wife. My wife is one of the most successful. First of all, she's beautiful, but she's also one of the most successful, women, actors in Hollywood. She's an icon. She's known around the world.
Mm-hmm. She got men.
She's got men. Literally. And men all around the world, desire her and would probably do anything for her. Mm-hmm. And that's who she was before we got married. Mm-hmm. So if I was the jealous type,
work.
I couldn't. I'd be miserable.
Miserable.
Because right now she's in, New York on a TV show. I'm here in LA.
And you gotta have trust.
And you gotta have trust, right? So if I'm a jealous man,
What is jealousy saying about us?
Insecurity, massive insecurity. I don't feel safe with me, so I don't feel safe with you.
What do you mean I don't feel safe with me?
Meaning, if I am secure with who I am and I feel good being alone, right? I feel safe in my isolation. I feel safe in my loneliness or periods of time when I'm by myself. Then I trust that you're going to feel safe and you're going to honor whatever needs to happen. Mm-hmm. But if I don't feel safe, like I don't really like being alone much and I don't really like being by myself, then you don't feel, no, what are you doing? What's the problem? Mm-hmm. What's happening? So that insecurity and not feeling safe with self, you transfer onto the other person. Because if you're content with your personal time, you tend to be more content when others have personal time independent of you.
You're not worried.
You're not worried. And then also one of the things that could happen is that you got burned in the past. Mm-hmm. Someone did you wrong, they violated your trust, and so fear has crept in, and so that fear is driving your jealousy.
Yes.
I'm afraid that what happened before is going to happen again. And so as a result, I'm transferring that previous pain onto my present situation. And that's always a recipe for disaster, right? Because the person you're dating is not the person you dated.
You can't expect them to repeat the same thing.
Exactly. Now, but here's the other thing. Because life is a mirror, right? Yeah. And whatever we put out, we get back. If you keep putting that out, if you put it out on the last situation, this person you're dating may not be a cheater at all. But if you don't trust them and you keep getting mad at them.
You're going to push them away, they're going to want to cheat.
It's like, again, everyone still has to be the keeper of their...
Not saying it's okay, yeah.
Right, but that energy that you're putting out is sometimes the energy you get back even from somebody who may not be predisposed to do those sort of things.
Yeah. Not saying it's your fault that someone breaks their integrity.
Correct.
But you might have influenced it in a way.
Correct. And so the person that's jealous has to, 1, get control of that security, and 2, get control of that fear. And also say, you know what? Listen, if that person I'm dating is foolish enough to step out on me,
that's on them.
That is on them.
That's on them.
Because they don't even realize what they just did. They don't even realize who they're missing out on.
Right.
Period. In a relationship, you are on thin ice and the sun is coming out. Mm-hmm. Because...
I'm melting.
Right. Because again, what happens is you're not free. Mm-hmm. You're not free. You're not actually giving from your heart.